The Great Wall of China was built to repel invaders. That's what it was for. It was to protect China from outside forces coming in. And it worked well. In fact, the only times it failed were when guards were bribed and they let in the bad guys. It's the only time it failed. It worked good except for that. And in our life, we have our own walls. They're called boundaries. And those boundaries help us in a myriad of ways. They protect us. They give us area to have freedom. There's all kinds of things that happen with boundaries. The problem is that many of us treat our boundaries kind of like those guards that got bribed. We let people just come in and out. We let people take over our boundaries, and we don't take control of our own boundaries. And the problem with that is if you don't do that, your life's not going to be as good as it can be. So today we're going to start a journey into boundaries, figuring out why we have them, what they're for, and how they help us to be better men. So let's jump in today. Hey guys, I'm David Maxwell from ThrivingMan.com, where we help you conquer your everyday chaos and live a thriving life. And one of the ways to do that is to have boundaries. And we're going to begin our series on boundaries today. We're excited about this series because it's something that we believe you can implement starting today in your life. And the cool thing about boundaries is they can fit in any area of your life. They fit in your relationships, how you date, how you're married, and how you interact with your wife, with your children, with coworkers, with your business success. Boundaries have a lot to do with a lot of areas in your life. So as a man, you want to have good boundaries. You want to understand them, and you want to be able to use them in your life so you can have a thriving life. So what we're going to talk about today is boundaries themselves. And we're going to start off by talking about what is a boundary. And a good way to describe a boundary is a predetermined decision. This is a decision you make, kind of like a wall you build. Something that you say, this is where I'm in this part, you're in that part. It's predetermined. You don't make it in the moment. You don't make it when your emotions are high. You make it beforehand and then you stick to it. And one good example is if you get these calls late at night from work and you're like, I'm so mad because they keep calling me. They keep calling me late into the night. I'm trying to go to bed. That's not a good example because what happens is you're letting people invade you. They're invading your space. They're going past your boundary. A good example of that is when you let people know, hey, after 9 p.m., I'm not answering any calls from work. After 9 p.m., my phone gets shut off. I put it in another room when I go to bed. And you let everybody know this is what's going to happen. So they don't have the expectation that you're available late at night. You're not being ugly. You're not yelling at anyone. You're just saying, hey, after 9 o'clock, my phone goes to bed. That's setting a boundary. That's you protecting your space and you communicating that to other people. And one way to think of it is like a property line. I live in a neighborhood where this is my house, this is my property line. I mow up to the property line. I don't go and mow my neighbor's lawn. He doesn't come and mow my lawn. We protect each other's lawn. And what you're doing with a boundary is you're setting your guidelines. This is what I'm going to do. This is my property. That's an easy way to understand what a boundary is. The second thing we want to talk about is where boundaries start. Boundaries start within. They really do. Before you can set a boundary with anyone else, before you can declare what's property line is part of your life, you've got to know what your life is all about. You've got to know who you are. What's your purpose? Why are you here? See, a lot of people don't know those things, so they can't set boundaries. That's why it's so important for us as men to have a foundation in our life. I encourage men to have a faith foundation, to build their life on something bigger than themselves. When they do that, they get direction. They figure out, why are they here? What are they for? They can take their giftings and bring it together with their purpose and get direction in their life. And boundaries help you do that. But if you don't know those things, you can't set a boundary. You don't have any boundaries. Boundaries always start within, because it's from within that you really figure out, what do I believe? What's important to me? What relationships are important to me? What kind of meaning do I have to my life? What is my purpose here? And as you work through those things and wrestle with them, that's when you begin to build those boundaries. That's when you begin to have conviction in your life. You know what you believe. You know what's important to you. Then you can set a boundary. When people don't really have convictions, they don't have boundaries because they don't know what they believe. It changes with the wind. It goes up, it goes down. And if you think about it, you've probably seen that. You've seen that from a coworker. You may have seen that from a boss. You know, you had a boss who would tell you one thing, but then the next day he'd say something different based on who he talked to. He didn't really have any inner convictions. He was trying to make everybody happy, and it was really hard to work for him, wasn't it? Because you never knew what to believe. And even if he told you what to believe, it could change the next day. And you don't want to be like that. So your boundaries have to start within. You have to start with, what is my conviction? What am I here for? What is the foundation of my life? And that's why you really need to have faith in your life, because you want to build your foundation on something that's real, tangible, and that can help you establish those boundaries in a good and smart way. With boundaries, there's a critical need for clarity. And when I say that is, you want to make sure that you communicate your boundaries clearly. You don't want it to be fuzzy. Just like if you have kids and you tell your child, hey, I want you to help out more around the house. Well, that's kind of fuzzy. It doesn't mean anything. They don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. So guess what? They're not going to do anything. But if you say, hey, every night I want you to help do the dishes and take the trash out. I want you to do that every night during the week. Then you've been clear. You've set the boundary. They know what to expect. They know what's expected of them. And that helps the house have a lot more peace. Why? Because you communicated clearly. You weren't fuzzy with the boundary. It wasn't, well, maybe this or maybe that. It was very clear. I want you to do this and I want you to do this every night. They know what to expect because it's been made clear. And that kind of clarity is like you giving a gift to someone. Because when you give it to them, they don't have to question. They don't have to wonder. They know what's expected. It's like you when you go up to a government office and you think you have everything and they tell you, you don't have a -45 3A Form B? And you're like, I didn't even know that existed. Well, everybody knows you got to have that. No, they don't. It's not on the paperwork. It's not on the website. Nobody told me until just now. But you've got to leave. You got to go do it. It's frustrating. You don't want to be someone who brings that frustration to your relationships, to your work. You want to be clear with your boundaries. So make sure that you communicate them with clarity. And with that, let's talk about communicating your boundaries. What you want to do when you have a boundary, it doesn't help anyone if you don't tell them. You don't want it to be fuzzy. You want it to be clear, and it doesn't help them if you don't say anything. If you have an internal boundary that you have, but you don't tell anyone what it is, how are they going to stick to it? How are they going to know what you expect? If you expect them to read your mind, it doesn't work that way. You say, well, they should just know better. Well, they don't. And you've got to communicate it with them. And there's a few tips that can help you communicate those boundaries. One, it needs to be clear and direct. Don't just make up something. Make it clear, make it simple, make it easy for them to understand. You want to make sure to use I statements. I need you to do this. I can't do that. I do expect this to happen. You want to say those statements in a way instead of a, you have to do this, you always do this, you that. That's very accusatory. You want to show that you're taking responsibility for you, and that's what the I statements do. And one thing with your boundaries is you don't have to over-justify them. You don't have to argue about them. You don't have to defend them, and you don't have to explain them to people. You can just say something like, hey, I'm not available at that time. And they say, well, how come? Why? You just say, I'm just not available. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't owe somebody that explanation. Now, of course, if it's your wife, it's someone close to you, yes, you want to communicate that. But you don't owe people an explanation of every single detail of your life. Once you tell them what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, that's it. You don't have to tell them the why. Now, of course, when it's someone close to you, yes, you want to communicate that clearly and get into some of the whys, because then you can both come to a mutual solution for each other. But to people outside that world, you don't have to explain anything. You can just say, it's on my calendar. And if something's there, it's there. It could be the fact that you're going to go take a nap. You don't owe them that explanation. And the one thing with that is you want to make sure your boundaries are held with compassion. You can have good boundaries, But sometimes things happen that are outside of your control. So you want to have compassion for that. And one thing to remember is that a lot of Jesus's miracles came from interruptions. They didn't come at a convenient time. They didn't come when everything was perfect. So for you, you want to understand that. You do have boundaries. You want to hold to your boundaries, but sometimes compassion goes past your boundaries because you're maybe helping someone, serving someone, or an unexpected thing pops up. So you want to have compassion for those situations. You don't want to be hard and fast on every single boundary, no matter what, because you want to understand sometimes the miracles happen in the interruptions. So guys, closing out the show, let's remember that boundaries are a predetermined decision that you've made. You're not making it in the moment. You're making it because you've thought through it. They come from your foundation. They come from your inner convictions that you need to build up. But that's what they are. And when you bring them into your life, it brings all kinds of positive, good things to you. You'll have better relationships. You'll perform better at work. You'll probably even make more money because people will know what to expect from you. And when you have clear boundaries, you understand more about yourself, about the people around you, and the people want to be around you because they know they're getting the real you. You can be authentic because you can communicate clearly and you'll have deeper relationships. And that's something we're going to be talking about in the future. So boundaries are something every man needs in his life. So this week, what small boundary can you set in your life? What's one small thing you can do to begin to communicate that clearly and helping your relationships grow? Start doing that. If you need more help, go to thrivingman.com. We have all kinds of resources to help you grow and develop as a man, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.